China, the rising superpower of our time. This power stands upon the social and economic foundations built over centuries. Once the heart of one of the world's most powerful and ancient empires, Beijing eventually transformed into a socialist republic. Today, we'll explore how that transformation unfolded. Let's open our window to the 19th century, a time when China was in deep turmoil. Once a mighty empire, China had suffered a series of devastating defeats against Western powers and Japan, plunging into economic collapse. After losing the Opium Wars to Britain, Hong Kong was ceded away. Following the First Sino-Japanese War, China also lost Taiwan and its influence over Korea. Chinese intellectuals described this period as the century of humiliation, while newspapers of the time began calling China the sick man of Asia. Rebellions like the Taiping Uprising only deepened the chaos, and reform attempts failed to reverse the decline. Meanwhile, Western powers and Japan kept expanding their demands. In this climate of despair, nationalist movements began to grow. Amid this rising discontent, a man named Sun Yat-sen emerged in southern China. He founded an organization called Tongmenghui, or the Revolutionary Alliance, aiming to overthrow the imperial dynasty and establish a republic. Support for his cause grew rapidly. The spark finally came in October 1911. On October 10th, revolutionary soldiers in Chiang rose up in rebellion, an uprising that soon spread across the nation. This nationalist revolution, ignited in southern China, marked the fall of the Qing Dynasty. By December 1911, a provisional assembly elected Sun Yat-sen as the first provisional president of the Republic of China. When the child emperor Puyi abdicated in February 1912, the 200-year-old Qing dynasty, and with it more than 2 millennia of imperial rule, came to an end. China had entered a new era. The newly founded Republic of China symbolized a move toward democracy, at least on paper. Nanjing became the new capital, a 5-colored flag waved proudly, and a modern constitution was drafted. But the Republic could not instantly deliver the stability or prosperity its founders had dreamed of. As one historian put it, the Revolution of 1911 was only the first step. It would not be completed until the Second Revolution of 1949. Indeed, the young Republic had almost no central authority. From 1916 onward, vast regions of China fell under the control of regional warlords. Historians later called this the warlord era. In the north, General Zhang Zuolin ruled Manchuria. In central China, Wu Peifu commanded his own army. In the south, generals like Tang Jiao acted as de facto kings. Each region had its own laws and armies. Constant warfare among these warlords made life miserable for civilians. Meanwhile, foreign powers still dominated the economy through privileged ports and railways. British, French, and American companies maintained enormous influence, fueling nationalist resentment among ordinary Chinese. At the same time, new ideas from the West, socialism and Marxism, began to spread rapidly, especially after the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. Disillusioned students and intellectuals started to believe that socialism might offer a path to China's renewal. On May 4, 1919, a massive student protest erupted in Beijing. The May 4th movement. Tens of thousands of students took to the streets, chanting for science and democracy, and protesting foreign privileges and national humiliation. The movement became a turning point, both for modern Chinese nationalism and for the rise of Marxist-Leninist thought. Among the young observers of this movement was a 25-year-old library assistant named Mao Zedong. Until then, Mao had read widely, from Chinese classics to Marxist theory, but the events of 1919 pushed him firmly towards socialism. Few realized it at the time, but that year would change the course of Chinese history forever. Just 2 years later, in July 1921, 13 men secretly gathered in a small house in Shanghai, among them the young Mao Zedong, representing Hunan province. That day, they founded the Communist Party of China. It was a tiny organization at first, just a few dozen members across the whole country, composed mostly of urban intellectuals. Their initial activities focused on forming labor unions and spreading propaganda among workers and students. While these efforts unfolded in Shanghai, another force was rising in the south, the Kuomintang, or Nationalist Party, led by none other than Sun Yat-sen. Sun's anti-imperialist stance drew the attention of the Soviet Union. In 1923, Soviet envoy Adolf Joffe and Sun Yat-sen reached an agreement. The Soviets would provide weapons and advisors, while Sun would cooperate with the Communists. This partnership became known as the First United Front. Mao joined the Kuomintang ranks and began working in its propaganda department. During this period, his views evolved. At first, like many intellectuals, Mao regarded China's peasants as backward and ignorant. But after witnessing rural uprisings, particularly after the May 30th movement of 1925, he came to see the peasants as a revolutionary force capable of transforming China. When Sun Yat-sen died in 1925, power passed to Chiang Kai-shek, a nationalist general. Chiang's goal was to reunify China by defeating the warlords. In 1926, he launched the Northern Expedition, a massive military campaign. Initially, nationalists and communists fought side by side. But in April 1927, Chiang turned on his communist allies. On April 12, 1927, Chiang's forces attacked communist workers and unions in Shanghai, a massacre known as the Shanghai Purge, or White Terror. Thousands were executed or disappeared. When Mao heard the news, he retreated to his home province of Hunan, where he attempted a peasant uprising. It failed, forcing him to withdraw with a small loyal force to the Jinggang Mountains on the Hunan-Jiangxi border. There, Mao established what became known as the Jiangxi Soviet, a small communist-controlled region. He developed a new strategy, not urban revolt, but rural guerrilla warfare, surrounding the cities from the countryside. This approach won the support of millions of poor peasants and laid the foundation for a future revolution. Between 1930 and 1934, Chiang launched 5 large-scale campaigns against the Jiangxi Soviet. The first 4 failed miserably, thanks to Mao's guerrilla tactics. But in 1934, with superior firepower and manpower, Chiang finally forced the communists into retreat. In October 1934, about 86,000 Red Army soldiers broke through the encirclement and began a grueling year-long retreat known as the Long March. Pursued by Chiang's troops and bombed from above, they crossed 18 mountain ranges and 24 rivers. By the time they reached safety in Yan'an in October 1935, only about 8,000 remained alive. Yet out of that hardship, a new legend was born, and Mao Zedong emerged as the undisputed leader of the Communist Party. The Long March became a symbol of endurance, sacrifice, and revolutionary faith, inspiring countless young Chinese to join the Red Army. From 1935 onward, the Communists built their base in Yan'an, where they regrouped and redefined their strategy. Mao wrote essays on protracted warfare and adapted Marxism to China's unique social and political reality. Then, in 1937, disaster struck again. Japan launched a full-scale invasion of China. Facing a common enemy, the Nationalists and Communists once again joined forces in the Second United Front. Although uneasy allies, both knew that unity was essential to resist Japan's assault. While Chiang's main forces fought on the front lines, Mao's guerrillas struck behind enemy lines, liberating villages and gaining popular support. By promising land reform and behaving respectfully towards civilians, the Communists won the hearts of millions. Meanwhile, the nationalist government became increasingly corrupt and authoritarian, losing the confidence of the people. By the end of World War II, the balance of power had shifted. The Communists had grown dramatically, with over 1 million soldiers and several million militia members. The Kuomintang, though backed by the United States, was weakened and unpopular. After Japan's surrender in 1945, the uneasy alliance collapsed. Civil war erupted once again between Chiang Kai-shek's Nationalists and Mao Zedong's Communists. Despite early advantages and American aid, the Nationalists faced economic chaos, hyperinflation, and massive corruption. Public support swung decisively toward the Communists. From 1948 to 1949, Mao's forces scored decisive victories at Liaoshen, Huaihai, and Pingjin, crushing the Nationalist armies. By April 1949, the Communists crossed the Yangtze River and captured Nanjing, the capital. Defeated, Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan with 2 million followers, establishing a government in exile. On October 1, 1949, in Tiananmen Square, Mao Zedong proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China. He declared that the century of humiliation was over, that China had stood up. Beijing became the new capital, and the red flag with 5 stars rose across the nation. 2 weeks later, Mao Zedong was officially elected chairman, leader of the world's most populous nation. But his story and the radical transformations that followed are for our next video. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. See you next time.